In Season of Discovery right now, casters are in a very bad spot DPS wise, and it's only going to get worse. With a lot of the conversation being around spell rankings, specifically this post right here, people aren't entirely wrong that spell rankings mean a lot from a DPS perspective and provide a huge bump in power for casters. However, they are missing a huge piece of the puzzle that will drastically affect casters moving forward, especially into the late game. And today, we're going to go over exactly what that is. Currently in Season of Discovery, it's no secret that from a PvE perspective, casters are performing badly. Just taking a glance at Warcraft logs, we can see the bottom half of the DPS charts are filled with casters, and the top half are melee classes. And this has sort of been known for a while now. This isn't really new commentary, so much so that Blizzard has even attempted to rectify this situation a couple weeks ago by recently adding 2 new easily obtainable items in an attempt to bolster range DPS a little bit more. And while that decision makes sense, it really just turns our heads to the actual problem that range DPS is currently having. And that problem is itemization. Currently in SOD, casters scale off of or receive a damage bonus from essentially one stat. That stat is spell power. Whether it's element specific spell power or just general spell power, this stat is single-handedly responsible for the large damage impact that casters can obtain. Of course, other currently abundant stats like intellect, spirit, and mana regeneration play a part, but the most important stat for any caster to do more damage currently is spell power. And certainly abundance plays a factor here, because if stats like critical strike chance, hit chance, and even haste were more available, or in haste case even existed at all, these stats would also play a major role in increasing DPS for casters. However, due not only to the current level, which is 25, but also due to the itemization of Classic as a whole, a lot of these stats just don't exist in abundance for casters. Unfortunately, if Classic gear remains the same, this problem will maintain all the way up to raids that are several phases deep into the game, like Blackwing Lair and AQ40. And that's because in these raids, stats like crit and spell power see a huge increase and therefore give casters a bump in DPS to bring them slightly closer to melee, but the field doesn't really get leveled out until Nax, and even then, casters are still at a big disadvantage compared to melee. But what does all this mean for casters right now? Well, we've already seen how Blizzard is trying to bring casters up, and we can see this by analyzing new gear that was inserted into the game in the form of the BFD raid gear, as well as the new gear injected into the game from tailoring. And in this gearing, we see a lot of itemization that you would not see in normal Classic. We see items like the Twilight Invoker set that not only bring a lot of spell power to the table, but also give casters plus hit rating, which is a stat that normally casters wouldn't see until pre-raid BIS items that become available around 50. We also see amazingly high spell power statted items like Twilight Invoker Shaw, which increases spell power by 7 on the head slot, something that you normally wouldn't see until around level 35 with Spell Power Goggles Extreme, or this random green BOE drop at level 34. And let's not forget about this staff. The Rod of the Ancient Sleepwalker brings a huge 26 spell power upgrade, something you wouldn't see until you reached level 40 and got lucky enough to get the sacred Staff of Jordan. It is so good that some people take this as pre-raid BIS to Molten Core. Then there's this trinket, there's spell power rings, there's these shoulders. All of these items tell us a story. It tells us the philosophy and the awareness that Blizzard has revolving around casters' deficiency, specifically at low levels. And it tells us how they plan to fix that. The idea is to inject spell power into caster gear to bring their DPS up, because that's the stat that scales them the best currently, and up to 60. But the main issue is that injecting this much spell power gear into the game so early has major consequences for the future. For example, let's say you become full BIS in Phase 1 Season of Discovery at level 25, and let's say you aren't a fire spec, and the reason for that is because fire spell power specifically is a lot more abundant than other elemental spell power. But after you reach full BIS in Phase 1, or even close to it, what items are you taking as you are questing or dungeon grinding your way to the second max level of level 40? Well, that's a trick question. There's not a lot. Caster upgrades are going to revolve around getting lucky random world drops to further increase your spell power. Items like Spell Power Goggles, Green Lens, Royal Amice, Gaia's Cloak, Gossamer boots are going to be the only upgrades that you're going to find, and even still, they are all world drops. There is quite a bit of crafted and rep gear that is obtainable, but dungeons and quests just don't provide enough gear that actually increase casters' damage in a meaningful way, especially compared to old raid gear, which is phase 1 BFD raid gear. Let me show you what I mean. In Razorfen Downs, casters get access to items like Robes of the Lich, Glowing Eye of Mordresh, Death Mage Sash, Mordresh's Lifeless Skull, and of course BOEs like Freezing Shard. In Scarlet Monastery, casters get access to items like Inquisitor Shaw, White Mane's Headdress, Triune Necklace, Hypnotic Blade, Illusionary Rod, Mantle of Dawn, Robe of Dawn, Blighted Leggings, Necrotic Wand, Embalmed Shroud, Orb of the Forgotten Seer, Blood Mage's Mantle, and BOEs like, I don't know how to say this guy's robes, and Swamp Chill Fetish. While some of these items have higher base stats like Stam, Intellect, and Spirit, these items won't beat out Biss from the previous tier from a damage perspective. So you just aren't going to take a lot of these options over Biss because of the stats that were injected into phase 1. A lot of people will have the issue where they are spamming the previous raid tier to try to obtain their pre-raid Biss to go into the next phase. So unfortunately, you have this issue where most of your best items before the next raid are either going to be random BOEs, crafted items, rep items, or previous raid Biss. And while that's sort of a fun gamble, and players that make a lot of money gold farming,
I hear you're a little short of this gold here. Is that right, baby girl?
I mean, yeah.
Why don't you come this way?
will love being able to buy all their upgrades to prepare for phase 2 raids. What does that say for normal people that will be questing or doing dungeons to max level? Well, they will have some options, but it's nothing close to how melee characters will be obtaining their gear, that's for sure. That's because melee scale off multiple very abundant stats, like attack power, strength, agility, weapon attack damage, and weapon swing times. And those items drop all over the place, from random questing items to tons of Biss located in Scarlet Monastery, as well as RFC. Melee are going to be in a great spot to have a lot of upgrades coming into phase 2 as they're preparing for the pre-raid Biss. On the other hand, casters are forced to farm BOEs, tailoring, rep, or keep their previous phase Biss on going into the next raid. So if damage items for casters are scarce compared to melee damage upgrades, and range is sort of stuck with previous phase Biss when starting raids in phase 2, and also casters are already in this phase not performing well, we can sort of extrapolate that casters are going to be gapped even harder once we start getting numbers in from the phase 2 raid. I'm thinking going to the next raid phase, casters are going to be absolutely abysmal compared to melee unless we see some serious changes in either re-itemization for caster gear in quests and dungeons, or seriously powerful runes for casters so that they can keep up. Overall though, I think this is a tough problem to solve, and while Blizzard has done a great job of it so far, I really hope that they see the writing on the wall here. I really hope that we see some sort of shift away from itemization changes with raid gear, because it will only further the gap between gear that can be found in the wild from dungeons, quests, and world drops, and that newly added raid gear. I really think rune implementation or altering world buffs to specifically buff casters is going to be the way to go, and I hope Blizzard sees this problem and addresses it quickly. But let me know how you would fix this problem in the comments below, or if it's not a problem at all and I'm just cooked despite all the evidence. Thank you for watching. I've been Java Monkey J. Peace.